Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm a little terrified that you're all staring at me right now, but I'm so happy to be here and so thankful to be hosted here on behalf of Pauktuuktit and so honored to be joined by my colleagues on this panel. So good morning, everybody. Before I start, I would like to once again acknowledge that we are on unceded Algonquin territory and that we've gathered here today to have these important discussions, and keeping the concept of reconciliation and the different factors that go into it, I think that's really integral to keep in mind and moving forward. So perfect. My name is Lema Ijtemaye, and I'm the manager of the Socio-Economic Development Department at Pauktuuktit Inuit Women of Canada. Our president, Rebecca Qudlu, sends her regrets for being unable to attend today. She hopes the discussions that will take place today will have meaningful impacts on the policy recommendations that will be generated towards reconciliation and economic growth for Inuit. So just a little bit about Pauktuuktit. We were established as an organization in 1984, and it's governed by a 14-member board of directors representing Inuit Nunangat, urban centers, and the youth as well. Our executive board is comprised of our president, Rebecca Qudlu from Baker Lake, Nunavut, our vice president, Anne Curley from North Baffin, and our secretary-treasurer, Charlotte Wolfrey from Iqaluit, Nunangat. Our mandate is to foster greater awareness of the needs of Inuit women, advocate for equality and social improvement, and encourage their participation in the community, regional, and national life of Canada. So on the screen, you'll see a snapshot of some of our priorities as an organization, and our organizational activities reflect the needs of Inuit women today. And some of the priorities include maternal and children's health, food security, engagement in the federal government policy initiatives and legislations that impacts them, mental wellness, safe shelters and housing, leadership and empowerment, as well as socioeconomic development. So more specifically about the mandate under my portfolio and the Socio-Economic Development Department, we have a mandate to also cover a broad range of social and economic issues. Following the strategic direction from our board of directors, areas of advocacy include political equality, women's leadership, education, early learning and childcare, resource extraction, and national and international engagement. Today, I want to talk more specifically about some of our high impact and bigger economic development issues within our department, and one of them is the Inuit Women and Business Network. The Inuit Women and Business Network aims at promoting Inuit women's economic advancement, and in 2011, Pauktuuktit received funding through Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada to undertake a 2-year pilot project to build a support network for Inuit women entrepreneurs in Iqaluit originally. The result of the project was the establishment of the network, which supports Inuit businesswomen to connect and share their experiences, lessons learned, and entrepreneurial advice with each other at any stage of business development. So the project has gone through sort of 3 main phases: the initial pilot in 2011, and then a general expansion across Inuit Nunangat in 2016, and then in 2017, we concentrated on connecting Inuit businesswomen in Inuit Nunangat as well as urban centers across Canada. So this informal mentorship was initially facilitated through meetings in Iqaluit and the development of resources targeted to build capacity and skills in the area that the network members identified as being barriers and challenges. A central website or webpage, IWBN.ca, and newsletter were created to disseminate resources and business information to network members, in addition to engaging potential new members. Since its initiation, the IWBN has been extremely successful. It originated in Iqaluit, but now has up to 141 members across Inuit Nunangat and the rest of Canada, including Hilda. She's one of our network members, so I'm very happy to meet her in person today. And the first phase of the project funding resulted in the expansion of the network across Inuit Nunangat and built on the original pilot project to address the needs and challenges raised by the network members and identified by them. There are unique challenges in the Arctic business environment, which we've heard about all morning, which include the lack of community infrastructure, lack of access to banking and specialized services, and the high cost of conducting business in the north. The central goal of the network is to provide gender and culturally specific supports, resources, and services to Inuit businesswomen in the north and across Canada. Through the funding received in 2016, the network engaged Inuit businesswomen across Inuit Nunangat to provide targeted business supports and face-to-face support from other Inuit businesswomen. The project connected Inuit women to business services and funding in their region, as well as developing opportunities for regional learning through in-person meetings and workshops. Based on the feedback received in the in-person meetings, additional resources were also developed and disseminated through our webpage and newsletters as well, which focused on aspects such as accounting and basic financial literacy. A communication strategy was also developed through consultations with Inuit businesswomen and northern business service providers to guide the engagement and dissemination frameworks of the network. The last phase of the project, which was in 2017, after expanding across Inuit Nunangat, the objective of the network in 2017 was to connect urban Inuit women to the network and its resources. As we know, approximately 30% of Inuit live in urban centers, and many Inuit women rely on entrepreneurship to support themselves and their families after relocating. So the network was introduced and launched in Edmonton, Winnipeg, Ottawa, as well as Inuvik and Inuvialuit, and Nain and Nunangat. A second objective for this phase was the creation of new resources and support for online marketing and communications, which was a need identified by our network members directly. This included the development of 2 online text and video resources about using Facebook and Etsy for sales and marketing. In addition, using the network as a foundation and as a foundational platform, Pauktuuktit's Mentorship for Inuit Women project worked to increase the economic prosperity of Inuit women in Inuit Nunangat by engaging Inuit women, economic development agencies, regional chambers of commerce, and land claims organizations to develop a gender and culturally specific model of business mentorship program. The business mentorship program connected women in earlier stages of business development with women who have more significant experience in entrepreneurship and businesses and everywhere in between. This goal was achieved by piloting an initial mentorship program with Inuit women in each region of Inuit Nunangat to collect feedback and lessons learned in addition to developing a framework for best practices. The project, at the end of the project, we adopted more of a group mentorship approach as opposed to peer-to-peer support because of the higher number of mentees in contrast to mentors. At the end of the project, a final mentorship model was developed and translated into Inuktitut, and it outlines leading mentorship practices, the basic principles of mentorship, and the benefits of signing on to a mentorship program. Based on the final model, Train the Trainer content has also been developed, and it guides anyone interested in the mentorship program from starting a mentorship group to conducting meetings, setting goals and agendas, as well as providing relevant business services. So that's an overview of 2 of the most significant economic development initiatives that we have in Pauktuuktit in recent years, but we also look towards achieving the next steps and advancing towards the next steps in Inuit women's economic development. So in addition to the initiatives that have just been outlined, we are also focusing on other initiatives. So just as a general snapshot, Inuit in Canada consistently experience lower economic participation levels than the national average. In 2011, the Aboriginal People Survey found that the national average unemployment rate was approximately 7.3%, while for Inuit, the average unemployment rate was more than double at 16%. The unemployment rate for Inuit women in particular in 2012 across Inuit Nunangat was 16.2%, compared with a rate of 23.5% for Inuit men. Furthermore, the labor market participation rate for Inuit women in Inuit Nunangat is 60%. Based on these findings, to develop program and services targeted to support Inuit women effectively, a greater understanding of these gendered needs and challenges and gaps across the North is required. So what we hope to do, just last week, Pauktuuktit submitted a proposal for a multi-year and consistent funding and project, whereby we hope to undertake a comprehensive consultation and engagement process in collaboration with Inuit businesswomen and relevant partners such as regional economic development organizations to establish the needs and priorities of Inuit women for their economic advancement and participation in the labor force, while also building partnerships required to encourage economic development. We hope and intend that this project will promote a greater understanding of the unique and specific priorities, needs, and challenges faced by Inuit women across Canada to reduce the barriers to their participation in the economy. So this project will, we hope, will build the partnerships required to promote economic development through the following high-level objectives. We hope to create an Inuit Women in Business Council and formalize our economic development frameworks, sustain and enhance the Inuit Women in Business Network and its activities, gather and analyze data to gain a better comprehension of the number of Inuit women-owned businesses currently in operation, as well as their composition and characteristics to better inform the direction of the network and support the strategic decisions of the Business Council. We also hope to prepare Inuit women to engage and compete for federal procurement opportunities and strengthen Inuit and Indigenous entrepreneurship linkages internationally. This project will enhance existing operations and resources of our business network in English and Inuktitut across Inuit Nunangat and the rest of Canada, and will be informed by Inuit women directly. This approach will facilitate the sharing of best practices, identify pertinent economic development priorities as they relate to Inuit women and communities, and develop corresponding strategies. I think I'm done. Nakulmek, thank you so much for hosting me and answering questions after I'm done, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, we get to hear from you, Leonie, about Kakivak and all the work that Kakivak is doing.
I'm gonna. Oh,
you want to go up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanna start. Nakumik. Leonie Qaumariaq. I'm from Iqaluit, Nunangat. I don't have a nice presentation. We lack resources at our organization to sometimes have presentations ready, but I've been working for, as Madeline said, for our organization. It's 25 years this year, this fall. And when we first started as an organization, we had a very small, we didn't have enough people. We didn't have programs that we delivered. But through one of the federal programs, our organization was created, and it was the mandate to support Inuit in our region in developing businesses in our communities. Because we didn't have any programs, we had to work with what the federal programs were out there, and also the GN Government of Northwest Territory programs, and try to work with all the economic development officers in the communities. So we were just trying to ensure that the Inuit knew where to go for them to try to access programs that are and have always been very restrictive and not really meeting the needs of the Inuit in order for them to access the programs. We were about 4 staff at that time, and today, maybe by next week, we will be, no, this week we're about, I think, up to 20, 22 staff. So our organization has grown. I think from looking at how to get Inuit into businesses, it's a very difficult task to try to continue to do. One is, as an organization that's mandated to do it in our region, some of the struggles that we have is trying to ensure that we have the capacity as an organization to continue to try to meet the demands of what's happening in our region. When I say that, we don't, sometimes over the years we've had not enough financial resources to continue to the levels that we need to be at. Inuit in the Arctic are not at the same levels of what you have down here, like in Ottawa. we don't have places that somebody can just go and rent to operate a business, whatever it may be. We lack infrastructure. And even before someone starts to look at trying to start their own business, one of the biggest struggles that Inuit have is the lack of equity. And all the programs that are out there, there's always a requirement for equity, and then all the restrictions within the programs. Mainly, the federal programs that are out there that were already previously developed, and there's so many, there's so many stumbling blocks that people have to try to get through, even just to get through the application process. So when we go to our communities, we serve 13 communities that are, you can only access by plane. In most of the communities, I come from the capital, so it's different than all the other communities that we serve because, for one, we have a movie theater. We have more than one local grocery store. I'm sure a lot of you had heard that one of our main stores caught on fire this past month, and it put a lot of strain on the families. But it's unique that Iqaluit is the capital, and it's the Inuit there are better off than the smaller communities, because some of our communities are 100, 500, in the communities. And when the high cost of transportation and not enough transportation, there's only 2 airlines in our region, and when families want to get out, or if you're trying to start a business, the high cost of any goods that you're going to bring into the communities is a lot higher than what you would have, because you have options in the south with being able to ship things through trucking or train. There's other options for businesses, and that's what we don't have. I think there's a lot of need for improvement, and just to give an example, when somebody starts to look at trying to start a business, it's very difficult for them to understand sometimes. Yes, they have an idea, but there's so many different things that they have to think about, and without having the adequate equity into trying to develop a business, or even the financial knowledge of how they're going to have to manage those businesses. So our organization, just this coming winter, we're going to be providing some workshops on how to start a business in our communities, not bringing them into the main center, but actually going into the communities, and also for providing some financial support, like teaching them how it is to do your books and things like that. So I think as an organization, we wanted to do this many years ago, but federal programs that we access to help our clients deliver, or for our clients to access, have changed over the years. And with one agreement, they say, no, you can't be doing workshops in the communities. So we were unable to do that for many years because the restrictions within our funding that we receive. So I think there's a real need out there for businesses to be started by Inuit. A lot of them start out small. There's not large businesses that would be doing, I hope in the future there would be much more larger businesses that can compete with the southern businesses, but I don't think we're there right now in our region anyways. So I think trying to remember that organizations that deliver programs and services for Inuit, the government needs to realize that you need to provide support for them in order for them to be able to help the Inuit in the communities, because if we're lacking the resources to assist our Inuit, then we're not going to be able to do a good job in helping them. Our organization not only does business development, we also have funding arrangements from various government departments, and we provide training and employment. We do child care funding. We provide funding for youth. And looking at all those different types of agreements, every one is different. One is a multi-year program funding. One is a year by year where we have to submit proposals. Another one is you have to take the program as it is. You can't even make changes to it in order to meet the type of program that we may want to do. For an example, as the youth. The child care programming that we have, we provide child care centers in our region, which is a very important part of any economic development that's going to be happening in our regions, because if you can't bring your children to a daycare, then you have no choice but to leave them with family or try to find other sources of ways of having your kids taken care of. So I think for economic development and small businesses for Inuit, you have to remember that there's so many obstacles because of where we are in the country, that there needs to be discussions with Inuit on how we want to have our programs, how we want to deliver them. And I don't think by just coming up with programs or agreements will work, because it just creates more problems for organizations like ourselves, where we're restricted to all the criteria and the terms and conditions of the agreements. And by giving us the flexibility, it gives us the ability to deliver the kind of programming that we want to see in our communities. I think I'll leave it there. Nekomay.
Thank you. So Sue.
I'm going to go over there as well. I don't know if I need this on. Okay. I want to thank you very much for having me here. I was a rather late addition. There's always difficulties traveling in the north, so I have been asked late, and I'm really glad to be here. We're looking at business development in Inuit Nunangat, and there's two sides that I'm going to talk about coming out of the Inuvialuit settlement region. Mm-hmm. For those of you who don't know, we are the small country cousin that's in the westernmost part of the Arctic. The Inuvialuit settlement region is 6 communities. The IRC, which is the regional corp, is based in Inuvik, and basically they are accountable to and responsible for the cultural and socio-economic health and wealth of the region. The 6 communities actually are the ones who provide guidance to the IRC and who let them know what they want. when I was listening this morning, just the Nunangat group of companies, when I first went up to Inuvik, I was working for the Inuvialuit Development Corporation and actually had the pleasure of working with James Thorburn, who then moved over to your group. The way business development is delivered in the Inuvik region, there is the Inuvialuit Development Corporation. They are looking at developing bigger businesses that respond to the regional needs and also provide services that were initially required by oil and gas and by mining. So they were looking at how they could ensure that the Inuvialuit were able to be trained and employed in businesses that were serving the area and that were busy. They have a similar kind of structure as you have in the Nunangat group. They have some wholly owned companies. Iqaluit Air is the local airline that goes between the communities and Canadian North. So they have them. They have a construction company, Nabak, and they do hire Inuit or Inuvialuit in the area. They're also hiring Gwich'in as well, because it's Gwich'in and Inuvialuit in the area. They have joint ventures that they work with that provide things like expediting, logistics support, GIS support, things like that. So those companies, those businesses really address regional needs. I'm managing the Inuvialuit Community Economic Development Organization. Our business development is focusing on supporting communities and individuals in the community to be able to build businesses or be part of businesses to get the skills that they need to do that effectively. When I was first up there, and that's back in 2009, it was a difficult task because at that time we were only getting project funding. So it was year-by-year funding. It didn't allow either the communities or ourselves to be able to plan and to develop and to look to how we could build businesses and build capacity because it was reactionary. I came back this time and it was wonderful because the ICEDO has a 5-year plan. It's a long-term plan. This is the last year. But it allowed them to create a strategic plan, and they had 5 steps involved, and most of it was to look for opportunities that communities were interested in taking up, I guess, and to build the capacity and enable community members to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. It's wonderful. It was like we were in a collaborative partnership with Canor, basically, because they were providing the funding for CEDO, and then we were able to work with the communities and look at getting other funding that met their requirements. And I'm going to give you an example of how this worked really well. Years ago, there was the muskox harvest that was done in Sachs Harbor. That was done on an annual basis. It was meant to provide long-term and lasting benefits in Sachs Harbor where they would have a business they would be operating. Didn't happen that way. It was a wonderful attempt. What it really allowed was in the communities, in that community for 6 or 7 weeks, there was employment for a few people who were then able to go on employment insurance. And now it's gone, that's defunct. It didn't happen. There wasn't any infrastructure built in the community. It was a good idea, but they weren't able to deliver. Now that there's been this 5-year plan in place, what's going on is there was basically a country food facility. It's a processing facility that was built. It was about 4 years ago. It wasn't cheap, but it provides the high-end infrastructure that was required to be processing country foods in the area. It's one step away from becoming federally inspected. But having worked on that, ICEDO was able to go into each of the communities and talk about how will this affect you, what would you like, met with the hunters and trappers groups as well as the community corporation. And they were all excited about the potential for food security in their communities, and would they be able to learn how to do the processing and that kind of thing so that they don't have to depend on in-ground freezers that are no longer going to be useful because the permafrost is being
degraded, basically, and it isn't working for them. So, yes, they were really interested. In each community, the harvesters and the HTCs are looking at how can they change what they're doing, how can they be involved in processing in their communities. So what's happening is the facility in Inuvik is now becoming a commercial facility. It's going to be leased from ICETO by the Inuvialuit Development Corp and one of their other countries, AOGS. They're going to use that facility, move it, and build a really high-quality kitchen, so it will be able to be federally inspected. They're going to be looking at getting meat from the south, so they'll be getting beef and pork that they can bring up. They will have a butcher shop. Those will be used to generate revenue, so that the side piece of that is the country food harvest processing. So they're going to process country foods, those that can be sold, may be sold south, but it's going to be providing in the local area country foods as well. The next step to that is that we were able to get money so that in each community we've done the study of what they need, what they're hunting, what the skills are. And in each community, there's going to be an opportunity to look at building a smaller facility where they'll be processing their own food in their own communities. The harvesters are interested in becoming business men operating their business. They're going to learn how to do that so that they can sell what isn't required in the community to the facility in Inuvik, and they will be paid for that. What started coming out of this is not only are the harvesters and the food security people and those that want to ensure food security interested, the artisans and crafters stepped up, and those that deal with tanning hides and that kind of thing. And they were, well, this would be amazing. If you have those facilities, we'd be able to bring them in, have the meat and food processed, and on the side, can we then look at tanning facilities, tanning our own hides, so that we're not getting $10 for a hide that's shipped south to be tanned. We can be tanning it and possibly get $150, $250, in some cases more, for our own hides. They can also then provide those hides to the crafters and artisans who want to make clothing, mukluks, mitts, that kind of thing. So it takes a lot of the cost out of it. We're not going to have to be shipping from the south, buying from Winnipeg tans or hides they could tan themselves. So it's generating an opportunity for, in each community, small businesses to be started, and those who don't want to be a business owner could work for one of the businesses doing things that they love to do. So you get back to your crafting, get back to your clothing making, get back to, even gathering berries and then being able to sell what you don't use. So there's an opportunity for a lot of small businesses to develop out of that. The other thing that having that 5-year funding enabled was we've been able to develop a process that's going to be used whereby in each community there's going to be, I'll use Inuvik again, there's going to be a storefront, and in that storefront we're going to have a Gwich'in and an Inuvialuit manager trained to provide some of the business supports that don't get provided in other areas. So they will be providing financial management, they'll be providing bookkeeping, they'll be providing marketing and promoting for the artists, for the harvesters who aren't comfortable yet doing business. Over the period of doing their business, they will be learning how to operate and start taking on some of those jobs themselves. So we're not looking at making millionaires, we're looking at helping each community have individuals who have sustainable businesses and businesses that will support the community as well as the other area. It would be great knowing that in Iqaluit, where they may get a whole lot more fish than they're getting in Sachs Harbor, they can be processing that in their community and they can trade across. Sachs gets a whole lot more geese. Because they also get a lot of geese eggs. There is a sanctuary there for geese, but they can be trading for things they don't get. And it's things they're interested in, things they've told us they would like to do. They've tried doing cross-community trade before. It was difficult because you're sending a half an animal rather than processed things that are smaller that can be done. So that's exciting. One of the other things we've been able to do with the artists and crafters, they're all interested in upping their capacity to make and sell their products. Pauktuuktit had an incredible tourism year because the highway went up. They were really excited. It was over 5,000 individuals, a lot of caravans and a lot of motorcycles. All the funding that was received was to build the road and promote it. Tuk was there with very limited resources to work with the tourists. So that's another thing that came out of Tuk, that they want to develop those kinds of businesses. They don't have the experience. We have it's called a makerspace. They just opened in Inuvik. The artists came in order to support our artists. We developed a program for the makerspace. We were willing to purchase equipment to put in this place as long as they would support our artists, provide the training we wanted. And that's what's come out of that now. This makerspace is going to be called a Technical Access Center. It runs through ARI, which is the Aurora Research Institute. They're partnering really closely with us, with the Gwich'in, to make sure that our artists are getting training that they need. You have the elders who are so excited to be able to take their art and work through computer-assisted design. They learned all sorts of computer programming. They're doing 3D work. They're doing etching. They're doing amazing work. Wouldn't have happened if we were going on a project-by-project basis. We're able to support them, and that makerspace is also going to have the same process we're using for the harvesters, where the artists and crafters will be supported by business supports, financial and bookkeeping, etc. While they get their business going, they will become independent and registered businesses. And as they get that moving and the markets and the promotion are being done, they will also being trained in the business side of things. We're hoping they will work as an association because that will support them and the model of the business we're working on. And it was only possible because we knew we had funding for the Community ECDEV organization to go on the next year. This year, that funding's over, and we're looking at year by year again. To be responsible and truly looking at reconciliation, I think what's important is that the government needs to look at the Inuit groups, respect what they can do and what they need to do. In this case, ensure that the communities and the Inuit are able to continue on with the development they've started. Great projects going on, you need to be able to continue. And that's one of the things that I guess I want to say. And I guess that's, oh, well, no, the other thing I did want to say, because it did excite me, when I did get here, I met with Leonie and the other CED groups. They're huge. They have all sorts of work that they're having to do, so you're having to combine both. We have 2 people in our Community Economic Development Organization, and we're doing, we've just opened a drone business, a community-owned drone business, because there's so much research going on, and we're looking at having to change to a knowledge-based economy instead of resource-based, because oil's gone. Mining may not be. So again, it takes time to develop that, and when communities tell you what they'd like, it takes people to be able to resource or to research it for them. So it's great. And the last thing, I was wandering around Ottawa. 3 years ago, I went through all of Ottawa, and there were 2 pieces of Inuvialuit art in the galleries and everywhere. 2 pieces, that was it, where the Holman prints used to be everywhere. And there was all sorts of work. There hasn't been the capacity to market those. I came by this time, went to the Rideau Centre, and there's 2 Canadian shops that sell Canadian things. 4 pieces in one, the moose carvings, 2 pieces in the other. It was exciting to see. It's something that when the Inuvialuit and Inuit are able to do their own thing and self-determine what they're doing, what they're providing, I'm hoping to see that grow. I have the 2 cards to take back to the artist and say, here's people that want to sell your stuff. Anyway, that's it for me.